We carry these set of rules in our heads, and then that's what we have a tendency. If this is what we believe, then we have a tendency to try and make that our reality. So we have
Hmm.
to break away from what we're carrying at the moment into fresh ideas about, okay, these are just beliefs, they're not facts. Just because you've never met someone that you can settle down with doesn't mean you're never going to meet someone that you're going to settle down with. Just because you've never got past the first 2 or 3 dates before, it doesn't mean you can't get past the first. But you need to go into this with the right mindset. You need to be more open to experiencing something different. And if you can change your patterns and everything else, then you can shift away from what you've experienced before.
Welcome back to Dating Rehab with Anna Morgenstern. Today, I have John Kenny. He is a relationship coach. He is the creator of Secure Your Partner Method. He's going to talk all about singles, getting back with an ex, whether to do it or not, and then dating after divorce. Thank you so much for coming on, John.
Thanks for having me, Anna. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about what you do, how you got into this. I always love how people got into the dating industry. I feel like my story, I was so curious for my own life. Like, how do I fix my own dating worries? And so that's why I got into it. But I'm curious, what made you help others?
Yes, it's probably something quite similar. So my background, I've done many things in my lifetime, but I trained as a therapist about 20 years ago, and worked for the National Health Service and also in private practice as a therapist for about 8 or 9 years or so. In that time, I trained as a coach, but I was kind of into mingling it into my therapy practice. I probably saw hundreds of people over that time. And I realized that nearly everything that they came with had a relational aspect to it. So whether they had depression, anxiety, stress, whatever they were talking about, there was almost 85, 90% of the time some kind of relational angle to it. So when I decided to branch out into coaching only on its own, I decided to choose relationships for that reason, as that there was so much that could be resolved and people could be helped by getting into the right types of relationships and managing themselves in relationships and putting boundaries and all those types of things into relationships to understand what's really going on for them in that space. But also, as you sort of intimated yourself, I also had a really checkered relationship history. I had a specific type of person I would particularly go for, and it was causing me no end of stress. Um, and it kind of reevaluated me as a human being every time. It kind of fed into my own limiting beliefs around myself. And so when I was able to get on top of that area of my own life, I just felt like a completely different person. Like day-to-day stress was easier. Everything about how I felt was just calmer and more peaceful, and I felt more confident, and everything sort of just changed. So to be able to offer that to other people now can remedy so many different issues that they might be struggling with.
Absolutely. I remember when I was dating people that caused me to have, I shouldn't say they caused, I had extreme anxiety based on the relationship that I decided to stay in. And
Yeah.
I don't, looking back, I'm like, what was I thinking? Like, I suffered at work back when I had a job in advertising. I never did well at work because I was so stressed over the relationship, constantly checking my phone. And my friendships, I mean, I'm sure they were so sick of me talking about these guys. And I don't know, I never thought like, "Oh, I could end this." It never occurred to me that I
Mhm.
could choose to be, to not be in the situation anymore. I felt like a victim
Yeah.
in my own personal life, and I feel like so many
Yeah.
people feel that way, especially dating now. There's a million different ways people can feel rejected now with social media and dating apps and events and parties and all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
I really try to help people understand, like, you're not a victim in your own life. You can make decisions. If something's not working for you, you can choose differently. You don't have to stay in something just because it feels familiar or you're scared of what could happen if you're single. Is that
Mhm.
something that you work with people? Like, do you feel like single people feel particularly stuck now?
Yeah, I think so. And also one word you threw in there, that rejected word. A lot of people have fear of rejection or feel rejected. In the coaching process, I try and help people just put that to one side because, even if someone isn't responding to your messages, even if they're not that interested in you, they're not rejecting you.
Mhm.
What they're just saying is that, this is not for me. And again, we need to kind of get that kind of word out of our heads, especially if we've had issues around rejection, and rejection is a powerful reaction for us. So yeah, it's I do feel with like, yeah, they do get stuck. I was one of those people. I was what's called an avoidant personality. So I would get stuck in a cycle with the same types of people over and over. And I would just avoid any kind of issues that were coming up. I wouldn't get necessarily stressed about, although I was stressed. It wasn't outwardly stressed, but I would just avoid conflict. I would try to avoid any difficult situations. I'd try and make people happy all the time. And that was my driver to kind of get people to buy into me and to make myself feel like I was a valuable human being and valuable in that relationship. And so I would keep going and keep going and keep going, despite how hard the relationship actually was, to try and prove myself to them and also to myself that I had some kind of worth. So, yeah, I would maybe for probably slightly different reasons for why you were hanging in there because I didn't have the anxiety issues. So you were probably maybe more of an anxious personality
No,
than an
you were the
avoidant
one I was
personality.
dating. I was dating the avoidance, the ones that
Right,
they, like, I never knew where we stood, and I don't know, maybe part of that was
right.
exciting and kind of, kept you on your toes, and you get those butterflies, and realize, like, no, that's just anxiety. And then
Yep,
you start feeling like it's a normal feeling to feel this way. And your body is just used to, running this way. When I met my husband and he was so stable and consistent and nice to me, it felt wrong. I really had to do so
yeah,
much talk to not
yeah.
sabotage the relationship because my body was not used to this and it felt completely wrong.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So when you work with people, where do you start? If you know you're coming into, I've been single for a long time,
Mhm.
might have some anxiety issues. I date the wrong people. I keep repeating patterns. Where do people start in the process?
Well, you mentioned my the secure partner method that I've developed right at the beginning. So the first sort of sessions that we'll have together, first sort of time we spend together, will be understanding that space. So I'll take a history of your relationships. A lot of this stuff will come from your childhood as well. So I'll understand your kind of familial relationships too, and we can understand what the real kind of crux of the problem is why you've never been able to find the right type of person to have a relationship with. Maybe, like you said, it was because you're an anxious type personality and you subconsciously keep choosing an avoidant type person, or it could be for many, many, many reasons why you do what you do and why you have why you attract certain people into your life and why you're attracted to certain types of people. So we do that exploration process first because there'll be a very personal space of why that happens. And so that's where we'll start is kind of taking that history of trying to understand where you come from and the things that have happened in your experiences so far that will generally point to a clear and obvious reason why these things keep happening.
Mm. Yeah, I guess it's really understanding how you got here
Yeah.
before you can really figure out a plan to move forward. When you go through this process with people and they start seeing the pattern, are they sometimes surprised and had no idea this was their pattern? Or do they usually feel like, oh, yeah, this makes sense?
Yeah, generally, once they've taken a bit of time to kind of think about it, sometimes it's like a light bulb moment, and they're in the session. They go, "Wow, yeah." Some people go, "I know I do this. I need to stop." So some
Mhm.
people are already very aware, maybe not sure why they do it. They understand what they're doing. Some people don't even understand or have any knowledge about what they're doing. But yeah, some people will go away and I get resistance to that as well. Some I might say, well, is it because of this? Or no, 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 no. And then they'll go away and think about it and go, actually, we talked about this and yeah, actually I think you're right. This sometimes I'm completely wrong. But the good thing about that is there's that exploration space is they will go away and think about it themselves most of the time. And they'll say, oh, John, well, that thing you said, it's not that, it's this. And then we can explore that a little bit more just to see if that's the real trigger to what's going on in their lives. So just opening up that door to think about it and reflect on it can be really useful for some. Like I said, other people just go, well, that makes so much sense. I've never even realized I do that. And like I said, there's other people that come in and go, I'm doing this and I need to know why.
Yeah. I mean, I think when I was dating, I don't think I had any clue that what I was
No,
doing. And
me
but
neither.
I was working with clients and matchmaking, and it was so easy to spot what other people were doing in their
Mhm.
life and in your own. And I kind of realized, oh my gosh, I do have a pattern. And I realized like I keep picking people that are unattainable and that don't actually want me. And it's more of validating that I can get this person, that I'm worthy. And once I realized what I was doing and I was able to kind of spot it early on. So is that the next step for people? Like now you have the knowledge of like you know what you do. So once a new opportunity presents itself, you meet someone new and it falls back to these old patterns, you recognize it much quicker, right?
Yeah, again, the feeling. again, I'm not sure if it was anything like you. I knew, I recognized the feeling. I know what the feeling is when I'm attracted to my old type person that I would have been attracted to in the past.
Hmm.
So in the past, I would have got a certain, oh, I'm not sure if urge is the right word, but there would be this immediate attraction to somebody.
Hmm.
And it was really unhealthy. And again, I didn't know. I just thought, I find this person really attractive. I'd enter in a relationship generally with an anxious type person because avoidance and anxious people go together unhealthily very well.
Hmm.
And that would be generally it was someone who'd had some kind of abandonment, trauma, really struggled with self-worth, self-esteem and confidence in relational spaces. And my attraction was to that energy. It was only when I had this one experience with somebody and I just wanted to leap across the room and jump on them. I was so drawn to them that I thought, oh, this is not right. This just doesn't, it felt so overwhelming. I thought that I need to check in what's going on here. So I took a big step back. I'd already done some work on myself at that point. I kind of had an idea about what I was doing, but I realized it was still dragging me into that space. Unfortunately, though, I went completely the opposite direction, ended up marrying someone who was massively avoidant because I wasn't used to being with someone who was avoidant. I just thought that, oh, this is how relationships are supposed to be. You kind of parallel line rather than being really enmeshed with somebody and getting into a like kind of a maybe codependent or toxic space. This was kind of, I lived in this parallel space with this person. And then when I was actually thinking, so we're not really connected here. I'd like a little bit more connection. And the more connection I sought from my marriage, the more she ran away. So eventually she ran off with somebody else. It was because I was trying to say, give me more, give me more. And she was like, no, I was quite happy with this, us living in these independent spaces. And now you want more from me. I don't want to give that to you. I don't really know how to give that to you. So I'm off. And she went off. Yeah. So you've got to be careful when you're working on this kind of stuff that you don't go too far the other way. But yeah, to be really aware of what your kind of attraction style is important to know.
Do you help people figure out, okay, this is what I should be looking for? Is there a process to really nail down these are the characteristics, the values that will make sense for me for the relationship that I'm looking for and for who I am? Is that something you help them with?
Yeah, I always get people to do a want list, but not, they need to be 6 foot and earn $100,000 a year or something like that type of thing. But what's actually where their morals lay, what their principles are, what their outlook on life is, what do they want from life, what kind of personality do they have? Then maybe some physical attributes and stuff will come into that somewhere. But it's then not just what they want from someone, it's actually what you're able to give to a relationship at the same time.
Hmm.
Again, a lot of kind of avoidant people would love to be in a relationship, but they really don't know how to connect and give of themselves. So again, if I'm working with someone that's got an avoidant type style, it's like, okay, you need to be prepared to step into a relationship space and give something of yourself. How comfortable are you doing that? Again, and then you'll attract a different type of person towards you. But yeah, definitely kind of having a clearer idea about what you want in a relationship, not what you don't want, because I don't know if we talk about kind of the law of attraction and stuff like that. Generally, if I say I don't want something, my brain will be switched on to look for everything that I don't want. So
Totally.
I need to switch it into this is what I want space. And then my brain will kind of start looking for all the things that I want in a relationship and consciously being able to do that. Because again, probably the same as yourself, like you said, you didn't know you were doing it. Subconsciously, I was seeking out people that my brain was familiar with,
Hmm.
felt comfortable with, and everything else like that. It's about going, okay, I'm not going to, this is what I want, and this is what I'm going to start looking for. And then you become more aware of the people that are around you that have those attributes. If you're subconsciously seeking people out, your brain will do it all for you. And if you seek out things that you don't want in people, then your brain's going to seek out all the things you don't want too. So you're going to keep missing all the people that probably hold on to the qualities that you're looking for.
I love that you said that, the law of attraction and not accidentally manifesting exactly what you don't want. Because I think so many people live in a negative space of there's no men out there. Dating apps
Yeah,
suck. I'm never going to meet
yeah,
anyone. I'm going to be single
yeah.
forever. No one likes me. I never get to second dates. And like that's such poison to even think that, let alone say it, because you are actually manifesting exactly what you don't want to happen.
Absolutely.
It's so hard for people to get out of this negative headspace. Do you have tips for people to kind of yank them out of the negative space and get them more into the positive space?
Yeah, so again, like you just mentioned there, it's like a belief system that we carry, isn't it? We carry these set of rules in our heads, and then that's what we have a tendency. If this is what we believe, then we have a tendency to try and make that our reality. So we have
Mhm.
to break away from what we're carrying at the moment into fresh ideas about, okay, these are just beliefs, they're not facts. Just because you've never met someone that you can settle down with doesn't mean you're never going to meet someone that you're going to settle down with. Just because you've never got past the first 2 or 3 dates before, it doesn't mean you can't get past the first. But you need to go into this with the right mindset. You need to be more open to experiencing something different. And if you can change your patterns and everything else, then you can shift away from what you've experienced before. But yeah, the belief systems are really significant because our beliefs are our truths.
Mhm.
And if we sit in negative truths all the time, then we are constantly trying to manifest our own reality. So we'll seek out everything that makes that real. And so therefore we'll keep doing the same things over and over again and attracting the same people over and over again because that just feeds our own sense of what life is.
Exactly. It's a practice. The more you do it, the more it'll come naturally to you. I mean, I do the same thing with having like sometimes I'll see a client text me, I'm like, something negative happened, something bad happened. And I had to really retrain my brain to not
Yeah.
jump to the negative because maybe something great happened. And why am I giving myself unneeded anxiety that, that's not real? It's just my brain, trying to come up with an outcome. I love that you said
Yeah.
that. Another thing I tell people is just create things in your life that give you a lot of joy, that make you really happy. And then naturally, like that will carry on into dating as well. And one that I think is just a must for people is volunteering. The more you
Mhm.
volunteer something outside of yourself and give back to others, like that's the best way to build self-esteem. And I feel like so many people have lost a lot of their self-esteem and confidence in dating. And they're always kind of asking, like, how do I build that back up? And like do something for others, do something outside yourself, and you will
Mm.
see that raise inside you. And not get so stuck in the why me, I don't want to say narcissistic, but like the more looking kind of view. Why do you think, people feel more single than ever today versus 10 or 20 years ago? Like why specifically today do people feel more stuck, more single?
I think that the way the world's gone, there is a definite lack of opportunity. There was a dating coach I was watching a while ago, and he said we need to encourage people to go back out and get drunk. And I don't necessarily think you should need to go and get drunk, but when I was younger, we went to bars and clubs and stuff like that, and you're always meeting new people. So I think with a lot of the online stuff now, a lot less people go out. I think there's also a stigma as well about being out in person and being approached.
Hmm.
I know this is maybe a couple of years out of date, but there was still this stuff going on about I'm out with my friends, how dare you approach me type of attitude.
Hmm.
Yeah, I get it. If someone doesn't know how to say no, or if they're being a bit pushy, absolutely, it's very inappropriate. But if someone wants to come and talk to you and say hello, it's all right. You can just say no, and hopefully they'll respect that and disappear. And you don't need to be you can't come and talk to me type thing.
Exactly.
So again, yeah, I think we've become less social and less accepting of people kind of stepping into our space a little bit. So yeah, I think we need to get a little bit back to basics. This is what we were designed for as human beings. We're designed to be social. We're designed to connect. We need to get out into the world and do some of that stuff. It can't all be done online now. Again, it's especially with the kind of the people that are fed up with the dating apps and everything else. I mean, can be so demoralizing, especially for guys. I mean, I think it's less than 1% or something of return that you get on your dating apps if you're a guy, and it's something not even great for women. It's something like 20%, maybe 15 to 20% of people that you'll get. Um, and I think also there's been this shift in balance in what women want from life as well, to be honest. Whereas I think back in my day there was a lot of people more settled for something that they maybe could have done better. And I think now people are going, okay, well, I'm not going to settle for anything anymore. But then we send this, especially in the States. I was reading some stats about, especially what women were looking for in the States, and their ideal kind of guy fitted like less than 1% of the population.
Hmm.
So again, it's about, okay, yeah, it's good to have some ideals about what you want, but we come back to that want list. It's not all based in someone's income and how tall they are or how handsome they are. It's okay, what are they going to be able to, what kind of security emotionally are they going to be able to bring me? What kind of, how much sort of safety, how are they going to make me feel like I want to be in this relationship? Not just how much do they earn? Because I think it could be a complete, you can say nothing on this in this podcast. They could be
Yeah.
a complete idiot, and you're setting your sights on someone. And then another thing with that comes with, if there's these very small selection of guys that are getting all the attention, then they're probably very going to be very picky themselves, and they're going to play the field a little bit. They're going to do a lot of, well, I've got the pick of the bunch here. I can do what I want. And then the other guys are kind of go, well, what's the point? So therefore they don't engage. So, I think that seems to be some of the issues that are going on at the moment. I'm sure there's a lot more stuff going on this, but that feels like kind of one of the biggest things, especially with this online culture. Whereas you go out and meet somebody, the first thing you're not going to ask them is how much money do you earn. Hopefully, you're going to pick up a bit on their energy. You're going to get to know their personality a little bit. You're going to maybe find them attractive for that. Yeah, again, if it doesn't work out after a couple of dates when you get to know them and they don't really fit some of the criteria that you're looking for. But again, if you meet someone in the flesh, you're going to be looking for different things probably than if you're meeting someone online.
Absolutely. And now people are getting married later and later. So we've already established ourselves financially, socially. And I think that's why people lead more with, okay, well, what are you bringing to the table? Because I'm already bringing this, this, and this. When before people were getting married in their earlier 20s before they had any time to establish anything and you're really
Yeah,
building together. So I think that is kind of where people have really shifted in their thinking in finding a partner. But you're
yeah,
right. I always tell women, do not worry about how much he earns. Look at how much he spends because that is a way bigger indicator of how, his financial responsibility and how he views money. Because you don't want to be with someone who spends every dollar that they earn. That's not
yeah.
going to give you a successful marriage. And, I look at my friends who got married and are in happy marriages, are still married. They didn't marry these tall guys that were these spotlight charismatic guys. They married people that treated them very nicely. They were serious, they were consistent, and they wanted to have a family and they were ready to settle down. Like
Mm,
those were the qualities that really drew them in. And then I know people that got married for different reasons. They married for, power, money, status. None of them are still married today. So you
no,
have to think like it's not the goal isn't to get married, it's to stay married and it's
yeah,
to be
absolutely.
happy. And I think when people go into it thinking like, okay, I'm marrying for status, and that could include height and money and power and all of that and looks, then that's not what's going to keep you married for decades. Because if you think about your 60s and 70s and 80s, you're not going to be like, oh, he's so hot and has a six pack when you're in your 80s. That's probably not going to be the case.
You never know.
You know, it's like we have so much fun together. There's trust and loyalty. We've built this amazing life deal. Like that's what's going to
Yeah,
keep you together. And
absolutely.
it's you're like we're all going to look different one day. Where money comes
Mm,
and goes, and there could be accidents and health
well,
issues.
exactly. Yeah. What happens when, my partner had cancer a couple of years ago? Who knew what was going to happen around their job? Life gets in the way. So they're the only things that you're finding. Like you said, that the relationship's never going to last if it's a superficial type um, thing that you've gone into the relationship for in the first place. Then how are you going to feel when this person that you've chosen is no longer able to work, maybe because they're not well, or it's like you said, when they've no longer got the six pack, or when they take their Cuban heels off and you realise they're only 5'8".
Exactly. I know it's my biggest struggle when I work with people is getting them out of their type. And it's a certain look, a certain kind of personality that really is not serving them. And
Yeah.
I want to shake them and be like, this is not something that's real. Your type isn't real. It's just a habit that you formed that you can
Yeah.
easily unform in your brain. It's, the more power you give your type, the more you're going to be stuck to it. And I think,
Mm,
like you said, like breaking down what's important, coming from a place of values and not going with your first instinct and kind of taking a moment to pause and think really like, why am I attracted to this person? And,
yeah.
that's why I tell people like maybe while you're going through this, intentional dating process, after you go on first dates, like journal a little bit and really think like, why did I like this person? What did I learn about them? Why do
Yeah.
I feel compelled to see them again or not? And is it
Yeah.
based on things that are real, like values, like I want kids, he doesn't? Or He's 5'10". I've never dated anyone under 6 feet before. I don't know if I could be attracted to him. Like, I can't even tell you when I was 28 how many 5'10", 5'11" guys I turned down. And when I was 35, I was DMing all of them and none of them responded to me. It is true. And all these girls, it's like, listen, just there could be a day could come where you will be banging down their door and they won't be interested anymore. So really think
Yeah,
hard, if you are dismissing people for these kind of superficial things that really don't matter. And I can't stand when women say, well, I like to wear my heels. I'm thinking when you have two little kids running around in the suburbs somewhere, you will not be worried about your heels anymore.
yeah, absolutely. And if they are, I would wonder what they're doing. Yeah, you're absolutely yes, again, that type that we go for, it very narrows the field down straight away, doesn't it?
Hmm.
Because you're only looking for very small specific traits that not many people are very likely to gonna carry anyway.
Hmm.
And you have no idea about the person. You're not giving the person any kind of opening to step into your life and go, "Actually, I could make you very happy. We could have a really great life together." I'm not even giving you the opportunity to show me that because I'm so fixed on these very concrete ideas about what my type might be and what I actually want. But when it comes down to it, like you said, is it going to serve you long term?
Exactly. So, another topic that comes up a lot with some of my clients is if they should revisit a past relationship, like getting back with an ex. And I know a lot of people that, they dated for a bit, something happened, they broke up, a little time went by, and they got back together and had really long, happy relationships, marriages. What are your views on getting back with an ex? 'Cause obviously, there are some forgivable offenses and some unforgivable offenses.
Absolutely.
Do you have any guidelines around?
Yeah, I think it's yes, there's a yes and no, isn't there? It's sometimes it's okay and sometimes it isn't. Depends why you're going back. It could be because it's something you know, it's a familiar thing. Um, it could be you don't want to be on your own, so you kind of backtrack. I've worked with a guy recently who's exactly like that. Every time he splits up with a partner, he goes straight back on and tries to find someone he used to date.
Mhm.
Never goes anywhere. He might start seeing him again for a few weeks, a few months or something, but it's never got any longevity because there was a reason why they split up in the first place. But he couldn't be on his own. Now he's got himself into a good space. He's still single and he's looking for something new to move forward with, but he's stepped out of his own way type of thing. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. You need to kind of again we come back to kind of morals and values type thing. If something has happened which really goes against who you fundamentally are as a human being, then no, you never go back to someone who would do that type of thing, even if maybe they promise never to do it again. Again, if it's a big thing, I'm not saying that they're ever going to do it again, but its likelihood is if it's something quite significant, they probably will,
Mm.
unless they've done some kind of work on themselves, which means they're not going to kind of go back into that types of behavior. But yeah, I mean, everybody's different. Yeah, you could have finished a relationship for the wrong reasons. You could have, you could have been an avoidant type personality and not known how to connect with someone when you got to a certain point. They could have been the same if the work's been done and you kind of think, okay, well, I missed a really good opportunity here.
Mhm.
Why not go back and see if you can make it work? Yeah. So again, everybody's going to be different, but yeah, again, it's about understanding what it is that you might be going back for.
Mhm.
I've never been that person. I've always been a person that's always looked for the next new thing. I may have hung around a little bit, in the kind of just after breaking up thing when you're not really ready to let it go yet
Yep.
type space. I've had a couple of those drag on for a bit too long, but I've never gone back to an ex because to me, as that kind of personality that I've got, once it's done, it's done. And I'm very hard for me then to even consider kind of rekindling any kind of emotions for someone that's I've sort of been with in the past. Um, but I'm not saying that's the right thing. That's just who I am. Whereas again, like I said, this client I've recently been working with, every time he split up with someone, he'd get on down search for someone, sometimes even someone he dated 15, 20 years ago, just to kind of see what was going on for them and see if he could rekindle something that he's already familiar with. So yeah, there's no right or wrong, but like you said, there's going to be issues you really need to sit and go, okay, why did we split up? How bad really was that? Was that a legitimate reason? Was that saying about me that I just ran away, or was it saying about them that just ran away? And if they did, have they done any work on themselves to understand then why they would have run away. Again, so it's quite a complicated space, but yeah,
Mhm.
it's a yes and no answer.
Yeah, absolutely. It's tough when you're still in love with someone.
Mm,
So if you still have like that, like I'm in love with this person feeling, do you go back and see if it's salvageable? Because to feel, so strongly about someone, is it worth kind of giving another chance? Because I had someone that I went back and forth with quite a few times because I didn't feel done. Like I still was in love with him. And if a therapist once told me that you're not done until you're done, but when you're done, you'll be done. And so basically she kind of gave me permission to keep exploring until I really felt that I was ready to move away. Because even when we would break up, I would date other people, but it wasn't really fair to the other people because I still thought about him and I was still really had
yeah.
strong feelings for him. So in that scenario, do you kind of keep trying to go back or do you just keep kind of doing the work to move forward when you really kind of feel like you can't move on?
Yeah, again, I think it's just an exploration again of what it is you're holding on to. Yeah, it's okay that you might still have feelings for that person, but the reason you're going backwards and forth, we need to understand the reason you're going backwards and forth with them. And what is it you're holding on to? Again, I did something very similar to you. I think it went on for nearly 18 months to maybe getting close to 2 years after we split up, because I thought she was the love of my life. At that time I thought, well, she's the only person I've ever really loved. I want to keep, and I couldn't let it go. I couldn't let it go. I was convincing myself that this is the right person for me to be with, but it was very toxic.
Mm,
And it was only one night we both sat there, we looked at each other, and we went, "We're done." And she went, "Yeah, we're done." And that was it. I never saw her again. It was just one of those moments where you had to get the closure. You had to realize that this just wasn't the right thing. And luckily enough, again, I was in my process of going through therapy and stuff at the time. So I was able to explore what I was doing at the time with my therapist, and they were able to kind of help me to see, okay, you're doing this because, you know, you're trying to hold on to some kind of dream that you've kind of placed on this relationship that really doesn't exist. Yes, you may still have strong feelings for this person, but they're not good for you at all. You're not really good for each other, but they're definitely not going to make you happy. And you need to move on. But you need, like you said, when you were talking with your person, you've got to be ready to let that go. But it's understanding why you're trying to hold on to it in the first place. It could be a perfectly legitimate reason for you to go back and go, actually, do you know what? I'm letting this go for the wrong reasons.
mhm,
And so then let's shift into a different space and see if we can make this relationship work and not go backwards and forwards all the time. But yeah, it's we all do it for our own reasons. It's just having that understanding of all that what's keeping us there that's important.
mm. Yeah, that's good to keep in mind that it doesn't necessarily have to be so black and white, and I feel it feels like you also you really saw it through until it felt like it was done, and I do think it's important to have that feeling in yourself, like, "Okay, I really am ready to kinda move forward and
Yeah,
close that chapter," and sometimes you don't get that with the other person, like, you were lucky that you both were able to give each other closure. Sometimes you have to give that
yeah,
closure to yourself and just say, like,
absolutely.
"I am done," and move forward. So then
Yeah.
moving into divorce.
Mm,
So many people that I work with that have been married, divorced, separated, and women that I work with are, say, "Oh, this guy is separated, he's not divorced. He should have disclosed that. I wouldn't have dated him if I'd known that." Are there kind of any guidelines of dating once you kind of hit that, okay, we're separated to divorced or maybe, a year after divorce? When are people really ready to start dating after marriage?
yeah, again, this is a grey area, isn't it? It's like everybody's going to be different. When I got divorced, I was dating when I was separated. I wasn't divorced when I first started dating. I think I've been separated for a year or so, but the divorce hadn't gone through before I started dating again. But I was ready to date, you know, even though I was still legally married. But yeah, again, yeah, I wouldn't do it straight away. I'd give yourself, maybe 6 months at least to consider where you are. Have you found your feet again? Have you got over the divorce? Was the divorce messy? Is there any trauma attached to that? What kind of relationship do you have with your ex still? Because some exes, again, we're talking just now, find it difficult to let you go, want to be involved in your life, or and they can cause no end of problems when you start dating people again. So yeah, it can be quite a tricky situation, but I think it's important then to maybe speak to your friends or speak to someone professional and go, okay, am I ready to kind of embark on something new? Again, it depends as well. How long has your relationship already been falling apart? I think my relationship with my ex-wife was pretty non-existent for a year to 18 months or so before we separated. You know, I'd been kind of ready maybe to move on to another relationship, even while I was still even in my relationship with my ex-wife.
I hear
You
that a
know,
lot.
so it was probably going on for 2.5 years of not really being connected in that relationship before I decided to start dating again. It's an interesting thing, but again, it's everyone's gonna. How many people do you speak to, and they go, "Yeah, well, I checked out of this relationship like a year ago," whereas the other person didn't know you checked out, so they're still there, so they're a year behind the process of moving on. So yeah, and there are people that just can't be on their own. So we need to explore that. If you're going to try and get back into a relationship after a divorce, is it just because you've so used to being with somebody? You've hung on to that relationship as well because you'd rather be in a relationship that's not working, but want to be by yourself. And then when you come out of that, you kind of feel lost and don't know what to do with yourself because there's no person in your life. So you'll just look for anybody to kind of have another relationship with just to fill that space. Yeah, it's something to talk through and try and understand for yourself about actually when am I going to be ready? When's it right for me to get back on and the dating train again?
I think the only rule I really have around this is if you're still living with your ex, you're not ready to date. That's the only rule. And I hear all the time, I have girlfriends that they go on a date with someone and they'll maybe go on several dates and they find out that he still lives with his ex,
Yeah.
because there's kids involved. And I understand that trying to keep the home environment more stable for children. But if you're still living with your ex, I don't think you're ready to date. I really don't. I think it's not
No.
fair to the person you're going on dates with. Unless you meet someone who's the same exact situation as you, she also lives with her ex, and you guys are just, want some connection because you haven't had connection in a long time, then okay, fine.
Mm.
I don't think it's fair. I know so many men that are separated, not quite divorced yet. They have kids but they're still fairly young. And so they're dating women that have never been married, have never had kids, and want to have a family soon. I don't think it's really fair for them to be dating women in that stage of life because the timelines and where they are in life is so polar opposite. I can't imagine any man just coming out of a marriage who's going through a separation is thinking, oh, yeah, I can't wait to have a kid in a year with someone else. Like, most likely,
Oh, well, yeah, and if they are, there's a conversation to be had, isn't there? And also,
yeah.
there's a kind of thing is actually, are they actually separated? Isn't there? That how many people have you spoken to and they've dated someone who they said that there's nothing between them and their partner, and they're still living with their partner, but actually they're still married and they're still sleeping together and they're still a family unit, and they're not quite honest about where they are as far as that relationship is concerned anyway, let alone are they really separated but still connected to that relationship in a way which means they can't give you their attention to be in a relationship with you, or they could be just pulling the wool over your eyes anyway.
Absolutely. I think you have to be emotionally and physically and also financially separated from your ex really to move forward. If there are still places where you're arguing over the settlement and it's a lot of energy around that, that's not a good place to go into dating. And like,
No.
I can't tell you how many people I've spoke to and myself too when I was dating, knowing the intricacies of this marriage and how often they slept together, the financials behind it, all the things. If it's still so much on your mind where you're basically using the date as a therapy session with a stranger, you're not ready to date. And if you're still physically so connected to your ex where you're living in the same home, or if there's even still some kind of physical connection, which sometimes does happen, you're not ready to date. Or
Yeah.
emotionally, if you're still really hurt from maybe there's a betrayal, or something that's really kind of affected you and you haven't moved past that yet, you're not ready to date. And you really need to, give yourself time to do therapy, meditation, I don't know, read some books, do something to, help or really just give yourself time to move forward and, let that wound heal a bit on its own.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really sad when a marriage, falls apart. But I do think that, you can even maybe quickly meet someone else that's a much better fit for you, especially if you spent years knowing like this doesn't work for me, that doesn't work for me. I need someone that's, has these qualities. I married someone that those qualities and that didn't work. Like you kind of do spend time in that relationship, really kind of fine tuning what didn't work. and what you're looking
Yeah.
for in the next one. So I do think some people come
Yeah.
out of marriage and they really know what they're looking for, and that's amazing. It really depends on, I guess, the situation and dynamics of everything.
Yeah,
Mm,
absolutely.
hear like a client story of just something that comes to mind of some work that they did that got them from maybe one place that got them to a healthy relationship or at least some understanding of themselves.
Yeah. So I worked with this woman a couple of years ago now, and she was constantly in relationships with guys where her voice wasn't heard. She felt like she needed to people please quite a lot. And she'd had a lot of therapy. She'd worked with a couple of coaches before, and everything revolved around her mum. So her mum was an alcoholic. She would drop the family like a click of the fingers. She'd be off, disappear for 2 or 3 weeks, go on a bender. Did you say the bender in America? Go out
Mm.
and get drunk
Oh,
a lot,
yeah.
come back, um, and then just abandon her all the time. So she was really focused on this is the problem. The problem is the trauma I experienced with my mum. And then we delved a little bit into because her dad was then stepping in to look after her. But actually, it turned out that the guys that she was choosing to have relationships with were very much based around the relationships and with their dad. So although she had the trauma and the fear of rejection and abandonment that she'd developed from her mum constantly rejecting her and abandoning her, her dad was very conditional. So he would spend time with her if they were doing what he wanted. They would spend time together if she would fall into place type thing. And so she didn't realize that actually the guys that she was choosing to have relationships with was partly based on the trauma that she had with her mum, but she'd done a lot of work in that space and she couldn't understand why she still kept making these mistakes in the choices that she was having with these guys. But actually, what she was doing was choosing her dad over and over and over again and shutting herself off. I need to be this to this person. I need to know what they want. And she was constantly focused on their needs and their wants all the time. And it had nothing to do really with the relationship with her mum. She'd already done the work she needed to do around the abandonment trauma,
Mm.
but she was just choosing guys that were her dad. And when she realized that she was doing that, because she'd always idolized her dad, she'd always, she'd never really gone into much detail about how damaging the relationship with her dad could be at times, and the ideas that it formulated for her about having a relationship with this kind of male-like energy. And so therefore once she was able to realize that, she was able to break that cycle. And funnily enough, we talked about going out and stuff. She was trying to look for guys online all the time. And I said, look, you just go and sit in a coffee shop by yourself. She lived lovely. She had a lovely place. She lived in this apartment on a marina. So she had access to this beautiful waterfront and everything. I said, just go sit down and get a coffee, go and sit down at the waterfront. She ended up sitting next to this guy after, I think, 2 or 3 months after we'd kind of finished our session. She got back in touch. She said, I've been taking your advice and I've been sitting down the marina. I've been going here and I've been going there. This guy just come and sat next to me and we got chatting and we've been dating for like 4 months now. So, you know,
Oh,
I mean, that's one of the kind of completely different to any guy that she'd ever dated. So, I don't know if it lasted, but they was together for quite a few months when she got back in contact just to give me some updates on where she was. So
beautiful.
yeah, that's kind of one thing off the top of my head I can think of. But again, it's not always what we think it is. When we're not finding the right type of person, we could be, the trauma she experienced with her mother was absolutely horrific. The kind of things it left her with were awful for her. But it might not be that. It might not be the trauma that's making you make these decisions in your relationships which aren't serving you. So we have to be really mindful about what it could be and explore kind of every angle to find out actually, okay, well I don't understand this because I don't know why I'm doing this anymore. Because it doesn't feel like it's that stuff. And sometimes it might not be that stuff.
Wow, that is such a good story, and I love that there could be a secondary trauma response that you're not even aware of
Yeah.
that you kind of that you blocked out or remember things differently. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Thank you
Again,
for
if you
sharing.
idolize, if you've got this kind of misconception in this instance of what the relationship with her dad was actually all about. It wasn't a bad relationship. They got on really well. They were very close, but it was very conditional on her fitting into his space. and she'd never really realized that.
Yeah, I like thinking about my own life. Well, thank you
Yeah.
for
Let's have a therapy session.
honestly, every podcast episode I do, it does feel a little bit like
Yeah.
therapy for me too, just because it's interesting to talk about these things and have a different perspective. And every therapist that I've spoken to has a different kind of specialty or different viewpoints. And it's just been really great to share this with my network. And thank you so much for coming on. Let us know where we can find you, get more involved, get more of your information and your coaching program.
Yeah, absolutely. So just visit the website, johnkennycoaching.com. Send me a message, WhatsApp, fill out the contact form. If you've got any questions, I can talk you through the process of what actually the program I do, the method I do entails. If you just want some sort of general advice, just drop me a question. We can get on a call. I do like a relationship review with people. So if you just want a half an hour chat, we can book in a call. We can talk through where you are, what you want, and hopefully you'll come away with that with some insights, even if you don't decide to sign up for some coaching together.
Beautiful. I will link all of that in the show notes. Thank you so much. And I appreciate your chat today.
Thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Bye.